Right, we are live.
Hello.
Hello. We have a special guest.
We do.
It's not just us two. I mean, there's nothing wrong with just us two, obviously, but we do love a guest, and we've never had a guest.
We haven't. That's
first. I feel like
first ever guest.
That's what you feel like, Lisa. You have your podcast.
Yeah.
Love it. So, as you can probably see, hello, I'm here. I'm Chelsea. The wrong way. The lovely Lisa is here. Can never tell which way I'm going. And then we are joined by none other than, is it her? Am I saying that completely wrong?
No, that's all right.
Sorry, I try. I really try. I am quite trying as well. Who is the lovely fantasy book critic? Do you want to start off with a bit of spiel about who you are, what you do?
Yeah, my name is Mihir Wanchu. I am part of the fantasy book critic team. We have, thankfully, Chelsea is also part. Is partnering with us this year for SPFPO. So that's how I got to know her. I also happen to know her because she and I were part of a blogging team in the first SPFPO or Spacebo as well. So we kind of go back a little bit. I have been a reviewer for quite a while. I love reviewing books. I love reviewing fantasy and sci-fi, which is why we are over here. And today I was lucky enough to be invited because these amazing ladies are going to be talking about a fantastic debut, which I really happen to love.
Yeah. So we are a little bit later than we planned for this live show, so I apologize for myself if I'm a little bit extra scatty than I usually am, because it might happen, but we are here to review the first book for the It's All About Fantasy read along that we host every single month. It is a new year, it is a new series, so we have been reading The Heresy Within. I'm very excited as well, by the amazing Rob J. Hayes, and I wish I had a physical copy. I just don't.
You need the physical copy.
The
mat cover is amazing. Like,
I need one.
But
we have sorry, we have some people here. Tufty's here, ahoy. And then obviously, like, what
Rob!
the heck? Hello, Rob. It's fine, you don't need to stick around, but wow. Hello.
When you read the book though, you can, and obviously Mihir showed us the other covers. This really does fit the book though, doesn't it? This vibe.
I agree. I think out of everything that Mihir's just shown us, that is the best one.
Right? That's an actual scene from the book, if I'm not wrong.
I think so, yes.
Yeah. And it's just the one thing that I do love. Also, your little quote from your fantasy book critic is there, which I love.
I got lucky. Rob was kind enough for that.
Just a little bit of a shout out to the fantasy book critic.
That's amazing. I think that is one of my many dreams that maybe one day I will manage to tick off, is to be on a book cover. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, that would be amazing. That would be like, especially if it's one of the authors that you really like as well. Like, so yeah, like it'd be amazing to be like on the like a little bit of a blurb thing on the back and like have your name on it, like, oh, that's sweet.
Think about how many more editions I'd have to buy if that was the case. I have to be honest, I think everyone would get one. Birthdays, Christmases, I'm like, come on, this one. You read it. Look at me. So let's get into the spoiler chat. So as always, these are spoiler filled. We will be talking about things that happen in the first book. We have only myself and Lisa have only ever read the first book so far. So we're gonna try and avoid any future spoilers, but obviously if it happens, accidents happen. What are the ratings that we have given this book? Lisa, do you want to start?
I initially gave it a 4.5, but I was sat and thinking about it, and for me, like, there's no reason why I wouldn't give it a 5. So for me, I think it's a 5.
Okay. Do I even need to ask you, Mia?
Sure. I mean, I actually gave it at first. I was with Lisa. I kind of read it when I first read it. I was like, "Oh, this is really great!" And this was back in the heyday. I read it first in 2013, which is why I loved it, because there was nothing like it. I kind of wanted to give it like a 5 or 4.5 out of 5, but then I happened to read the second book, and that was a proper 5 out of me. So that is why I would say that this is kind of like a 4 out of 5 or 4.5 out of 5, if that's allowed.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
As good as this is, the second book is even more bonkers and crazier and more action packed. So,
Oh God, it's smaller as well, isn't it? So you're going to be fitting all that into like a smaller book.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm excited for that one then. I gave the first book 4 stars. I know that I am super harsh when it comes to reading books, and just nodding like I'm not the one that brings down the averages in the team at all.
Mark loves that, so don't worry at all. That's good, because then it kind of shows, the various opinions. So that's good.
But I think as well, like I was watching back some videos that other booktubers have posted, and they said, oh, when I first started I was nicer to books, and I was like, I think starting this has made me worse. I think I just rate books so harshly because we read so many and we're experienced to so many, but also it's because personally for me I've already read Along the Razor's Edge by Rob J. Hayes, and that was a 5-star for me. So I think that's kind of where it is as well. Maybe if I hadn't read Along the Razor's Edge beforehand, this would have been a 5. Still a very good book.
Things for me, I'm kind of glad that we started with this, because this was his first series.
Yeah.
And this is my first experience with his writing. But to say that this was a debut.
Yeah.
What the hell?
But it's like Ryan Carhill. Ryan Carhill's first book seems to has done so incredibly well. And some people are just born to write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. So we have Tufty's rating. 4.5 for this one. Had a great time reading. And Along the Razor's Edge was my first Hayes book, and it was a 5-star. Yeah, I agree. I think I'm looking forward to hearing Lisa's thoughts when she reads that one, purely because I don't know if you agree with this for this book as well, Lisa. I love the way Rob writes girls, which sounds really stupid, but as a girl, reading females from men's perspective is usually horrible.
Yeah, it does always worry me when a female comes into a book and it's written by a male, because it can fall into like some of the, I mean, I don't mind some of the classical fantasies where the women's are kind of like the damsels in distress, because that's sort of like how fantasy started. But but the good thing about this is like she's a badass character, but she's not just one of those like I'm not like other girls kind of thing. She's a well-rounded person, so she has like a feminine side, a female side where she likes to be with men, and sort of like that, well, kind of like flirty bantery side. But when it comes to like fighting, she can hold her own, and she's not like, oh my god. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think especially because at the start of the book, when we're first introduced to our female main character, because there's only one, I was a bit apprehensive because there is a part where she's strutting around the castle where she is, and she's going, all the men look at me, and the other women don't like me, but they must get more business because of me, but they're not thinking about you. And I was like, oh dear Lord, okay, here we go. But the more obviously we get into it, the more we see dark sides and ambitions and all sorts. Like it's like a real person, like layered.
Yeah, it is though. Like the one thing I like about this as well, and I don't know if you agree with me here, is that you can't say that any of these characters are good people, but you still really love them.
Yeah, I agree.
You do. You absolutely do, because all 3 of them, like, there are only 3 POV characters, and yes, there's more other side characters as well. Jezet, as you both were talking about, she's such a fascinating character, right? She has her dark sides to her. She has that, like you, Chelsea, like you mentioned, when you're meeting him the first time, you're thinking like, what is she doing? Like, she's running away, but then she's also sleeping with the guy who supposedly she's wanting to run away from. And then of course you kind of find out her backstory in bits and pieces, and then you realize what a badass she is, and that gives such a wonderful portrait, right? And she's not the hero. neither is Tranquil, neither is the Blackthorn. Of all the
Oh my god, him! That is.
Yeah.
right?
When
I love that.
yeah. I mean, when I was told that this was grimdark, my only other experience with grimdark was Joe Abercrombie, and in my mind, in my eyes, Joe Abercrombie didn't go dark enough in the first lot trilogy that I read. There was like one character that went pretty dark, but for me, it wasn't sort of like grim dark enough for me.
Yeah.
Whereas this was just absolutely from the offset. It was grim dark, wasn't it? And you get straight into it, and there's absolutely no messing around.
No.
And when I think of grim dark as a genre, I read this and I'm like, this is what I was expecting from Joe Abercrombie when I read him, and I didn't get, and that's why I didn't really enjoy that series as much. Whereas this is kind of like you get into it, and it's like at some points you're kind of like, oh my god, that's horrible, but you still keep reading.
Yeah, this is the problem. I was listening to it audibly, mainly while I was on site for my job. So there were points where I was like, I need to walk away from people right now. I'd like, you can't hear what's in my headphones, but I think if you did, you'd look at me differently.
Right? Because they're talking about killing people, and Jezet kills a few people. The Blackthorn, he just murders people left and right, and he's such a fascinating character. Like he has these noble intentions, but then he's also a murdering rogue, and he's surrounded by worse people than him. But like you mentioned, they're so charismatic that you want to read more. Like I love Bones. His camaraderie and friendship with Bones was so much fun to read about.
See, that's the thing. I think that it kind of it does make you realize that the well-rounded people. So even though they're not inherently good, like they're not the hero character, they do have feelings, and they do have that camaraderie between themselves, and they do care about each other, and that's the thing that sort of like makes you like them, is because they do have that side to them. They're not totally just like horrible to everyone and just a totally horrible person. They do have those sort of like connections with other people.
Yeah, which is great, because the thing is, it's like I said about the characters, them being like real people. It's real connections as well, and that's really difficult to replicate in books. I find, like in a show or a film, because you're seeing it, sometimes it's easier, but because you're reading it and it has to be described. I'm a very big picky reader in the fact that I don't want to just be told it. I want to be shown it, but I don't just want to be shown it. I want to be told it. Like, it's a really weird line that you can't cross.
In a part of a TV show, they have the dialogue where they can, kind of set it up, right? Like when you have two actors doing a dialogue, or they're walking, or they're describing. So, you're kind of filled with all these stimuli. So you kind of get a sense of what that character is. Or they can just show, just certain shots where you see something and you're like, oh, that's what this means. But in the book, it's harder because you're given these, let's face it, absolutely not horrendous, but kind of two horrendous characters and one semi-horrendous character, but you're still drawn to them and you want to read more. Like, I have a question for you both. Who was your favorite character when you started versus who was your favorite character when you ended?
Oh, I think my favorite one when I started was probably Blackthorn, but by the end it was probably Jez.
Yeah, I think I ended with Jez, but I started with the name is not very good.
Tranquil.
Yep, name's not my strong point. But I started with Thanquil, but that's because when we started this book, so the first chapter is Thanquil, and I was like, right, okay, let's see how we go, dip our toe in, see what's gonna happen, and obviously we're introduced to him, and obviously the arbiters, and explaining what that is. And I was like, okay, this sounds really interesting. Then the first chapter we meet Jezet, and she's obviously escaping, or she's escaped where this warlord is, and she's gone back to him, and then she ends up sleeping with him and all this. And I was like, not sure if you're the girl for me. Got to be honest. And then we get Blackthorn, and I was like, okay, yeah, like I get it. You're a dastardly character. That's the point. But what I really, really enjoyed about this book is that even though we're only given like chapters from each perspective, the more you read, the more layers there are to every character, and the more you learn their intentions and their wants. And obviously, on the blurb, it says, oh, well, these three characters need to come together in an unlikely truce and destroy evil. And I was like, right, when's that going to happen? Because usually in books, it happens within, 50 to 100 pages because that's the main point. And people just want to kind of chivvy on and get on with the story. Whereas what I really enjoyed from Rob, although there was a point where I was like, when is this happening? I was like, I feel this is a better way to do it because now I know so much more about each of them in their own ways and what they each want, that when they come together and they go, actually, we don't want to work together, but then they end up working together, you're like, okay, this actually makes sense. It's not just well, this is the point that I wanted to get to. I just got there.
Yeah.
It's quite natural.
I do like that you got to know each of the characters before they came together, because I do think sometimes if characters are brought together too quickly, you can lose each individual personality because they then just become a group of people. Then you like them as a group. Whereas you got to see Thankful and his five finger discounts that he likes and stuff, and the draw that he has, it's like an addiction, and that makes me think like, oh, right, so he's this arbiter and he's supposed to uphold all these rules, but then he's a thief. Like, there's two sides of him just in that beginning thing. That and he's like, well, and he talks about these urges that he's got and like how he struggles with that and stuff, and it's like there's just layer upon layer, and then I like how they slowly introduced them to each other again. They didn't just throw them all together at once. Sort of like it was like a back and forth on it, and then there's like a story to how each of them met, and the past and how Blackthorn's name
it's
sort of like it's
everyone.
known by everyone, and that little shit, what's his name? It was just totally like he was just like, can I kill him?
Green, I think, was it Green?
Yeah, Green.
And he's just like, I don't like people knowing me on because they just want to try and kill me. And this Green's just like, I want to kill you.
He's just like, hey, it's Dawn. Dawn's over here. Hey, Dawn.
Yeah. Every time he said his name out loud, I'm like, oh my god.
I know it's secret, but hey, Thorn. It's literally like how I imagine some of it is like almost as if they're in like a busy restaurant and he's just there going, "Wait, Thorn, what do you want to drink? What do you want, Thorn?"
And I was like, we need to kill him.
Yeah, kill him off. Get rid of him.
And I think the place where they're meeting, the wilds, it's like truly wild. Like, there's no laws. There's it's kind of like the Wild West of that world, and it is anything goes. And like Thorne says, like he's known for killing 5 arbiters, but then actually it's 6 because everybody forgets the first, and then he has such a characteristic face, with certain digits missing, his face being burnt off, and to mention the crew he's with. Like, it's not just him. It's the giant. There's there's the boss. There's Henry, which I'm.
Oh my god, Henry!
We can talk about later as well, and then I would love to hear what you guys think when you read the second book. And they're a crazy lot. And then there's Swift, and then of course there's Green, whom we all love to hate, right? Did you guys hate Green as much as I did?
Yeah,
I hated him every time he was on page. I was like, this is one character I want Thorne to kill. Just accidentally. Just a swipe. Oh, jam Captain fell.
Yeah, it's one of those books that I think if you hadn't mentioned about the second book being even better, I would probably, after this conversation, sit here and be like, maybe it is actually a 5-star because I did really enjoy it. But I'm gonna hold out for the second book and see how I feel.
I have a feeling, Chelsea, like you'll be like to me, like the first book was good, like which is why I like the rating 4 stars or 4.5 stars. But the second book is a whole another level, and so I would love to hear when you read that to see how it compares.
Oh, don't worry. You can come back for the next live show too, and we'll just carry on. We'll just
carry on the discussion.
Just keep going. Yeah.
I've been waiting to talk about these books for a long, long, long time.
Who was sad? I think that's meant to be when the gang got wiped out by the demons.
I was torn with this one. So Green obviously betrayed them. Absolutely needs to just die. I was just like, finally, please, thank you. But then when that happened with the boss, because I'm used to reading fantasies where some kind of miracle coinkydingle thing happens where
no one dies,
where one of them is saved, I'm like, even though I know this was grimdark and I'd read the rest of the book and I knew what kind of writer Rob was, and I've seen people comment about how he writes before, I'm like, maybe the boss will survive. And then it was like, oh no, he doesn't. But then when he shouts at Henry to run, I'm like, well, maybe she survives. I'm like, well, no, she doesn't either. I'm like, oh my god, like why is he just obliterated everybody we've grown to kind of feel something for?
Yeah,
like, ow, please, like,
right.
what's going on?
And this world has this weird thing about demons. Like when they appear, they go crazy. Like they only for our listeners and readers, like they're bound by the arbiters, so they listen to the arbiters, which I think is kind of shown. So this is what the world, one of the demons in the world looks like.
That'd scare me. I'd die of fear. Like, let's see, one of those.
I'd die of fear.
I'd be scared to death. Literally.
But if they get called by anybody else, they can wreak havoc, and that's what happens. I'm with you, Lisa. I felt like a certain affinity towards the boss. I didn't like him as much as Bones and Blackthorn, but I still liked his his leadership skills, because to command such a group of backstabbing bastards and to make them scared of him, that's some guts, right? That takes some guts. So
he has an air about him that, like, they are all lethal in their own way, but they all respected him enough to know that he could literally wipe them out if he wanted to. So they needed to start, like, they had that respect for him. So I was like, well, again, you're not a character that's like a good, inherently good character. Like, you do have, but the fact, and just a little bit when Henry thought he was going out for the women and it actually wasn't. And I was just kind of like, that to me was just kind of like a little bit of a, he does have some morals. Do you know what I mean? Like, he does have something about him. And then he goes and fucking kills him off. I was like, why? You make me like him. He's like, he's loyal to the person he's with. And then I'm like, all right, okay, well, that's
they
just
all have a bit of a goodness or something honorable about them that you like them for it. And then they are horrible, but then you're like, maybe they're doing this to worse people, so it's okay.
They're worse. Like, these are an 8, they're a 10, so they can die, right?
I think this is a really valid point. So Tufty said he held off on a 0.5 star because he actually found some of the coarseness uncomfortable to read, which I'm actually interested to hear your thoughts as well, Lisa, because this is, like you said, you've only read Joe Abercrombie. So have I, really, for Grimdark. How did you feel reading some of the less PG scenes, shall we say?
So when it comes to, like, the sort of, like, intimate, well, let's say intimate, wasn't really intimate, like the sex scenes and stuff. I read small and stuff like that, so it wasn't too difficult for me to read. What I found more difficult, well, not necessarily difficult, but what kind of shocked me is just the amount of swearing and stuff in it, and how in detail things did get when people were being killed and stuff. Because although I've read, like, for instance, like, Ryan Cahill is an adult writer, but he does hold back on the descriptors of how gory
Yeah.
things can get. And and I've read books with swearing in them before, but it's just
another level.
It's just another level of swearing and stuff. And I can understand how this can put some people off, but for me, you kind of come to expect it of these kinds of people. I think if
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have the swearing and they didn't have the crass behaviour and it wouldn't be true to the characters that we've been introduced to and the types of
Yeah.
people that we've been introduced to. You
Yeah.
can't have a group of people like this and be like, oh, prim and proper. Like you can't, because it just wouldn't fit with the story. It wouldn't fit with the characters.
Yeah.
So I don't think I was prepared. I knew it would be that. I didn't prepare myself for the amount of like swearing and how grim it could
Yeah.
get. But once I'd heard it for a little bit, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm good with this.
Yeah.
Can I
I
mention
agree.
something funny?
Yeah, of course.
So there was a review by Rob's uncle on Amazon UK about this very thing. Like, he had mentioned that this is my nephew's book. I like it, but it has too much swearing. And then the commentators were like, "This is a grimdark book. Why are you reading it? Even if it's your nephew, why are you reading it?" And so poor Rob had to then apologize to his uncle via calling, like, "I'm really sorry. I didn't know. Thank you for writing a review, but I'm sorry for the comments." And I was just like, "This is hilarious."
That's brilliant, though. I think
I've done a review though.
I feel the same. I think because I don't read a lot of romance or smart or any of that, what I enjoyed is the wrong word, but what I liked about this book is that the sex scenes are literally to the point. There is no anything else that you get in smut books. It's literally like, this is the reason this is happening. It's either the boys are in a brothel, let enough steam, Jesset is doing it so she doesn't have to actually draw her sword. Like, there's an actual almost reason behind it. And again, it's quite human in that way. And the swearing in that was just brilliant.
I just think that if it had suddenly decided to start, but you could tell from the beginning that his writing style is not a flowery writing style. It's
oh god, no.
It is to the point, and like it's quite I say simple is the wrong word, but like I said, before we came live, you said some people are just born to write. You could tell that he was born to do this kind of thing, and this kind of writing. It would be different. It wouldn't be right if he then went into like some sort of flowery, intimate scene.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So I think all of his writing choices, all of his character choices and plot choices, they fit so well together with the whole vibe of the book.
Yeah.
And afterwards, 100%. I was kind of like, shit. Like, I need to remember that I can't swear that much.
I mean, I do, but not at work, not online. So, in my head, mainly it's probably more of a Rob J. Hayes novel than
I don't know if anybody who swears as much as the books have shown could, actually have a job anywhere in the world.
No.
He would not have a job.
They'd be out on the backside in no time, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Like, because he just rolls on the tongue with each other as well, doesn't he? Like the way that they talk to each other.
Yeah.
He's just.
But it feels real, right, Lisa? Because you mentioned, they're murderous cutthroats. They're not going to be pleasant while they're doing it.
Yeah.
Arbiter.
Sorry.
Let me go and stab this person. Oh, sorry. Did I splash blood on your new shoes? I'm ever so sorry, man. I'll buy you some new ones. Don't worry.
Let me just get down and clean this up.
Yeah.
Do it with some flavour. Like, no.
Tea. I really like that, though. I like the relationships as well within this book. I think they're just done really well. Like, whether they are, just passing through, or the scene in the brothel, I will say, made me a bit uncomfy between
Swift and his sister.
Swift, his sister, and his mum.
Oh, his mom,
yeah.
I was like, hang on a second, you're actually related?
Yeah, that was. I'm glad that it didn't go any further than what it did.
Oh god, yeah.
But for a moment there, I was kind of ready to open Twitter and message Rob, be like, incest, dude.
What's wrong, dude?
Are we really doing incest right now?
Yeah.
But it was. I think it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable though, because again, if you've seen any like, there was this any shows that like Peaky Blinders or that are set in like brothels and taverns where that kind of thing was the norm.
Yeah.
The way that she's acting, the way that she's so outwardly like flirting with everyone, and it's kind of like in a crass way. Again, it kind of rings true to that type of person, that type of situation. But the fact that they did get a bit too close, I'm like, back off! Do not touch her in any kind of way.
She turned around and said, "And no mother has said that we're not allowed to potentially
But
sleep
also in
together."
that scene, they both have some weapons in their hand, right? Like Rose has like a knife hidden
Yeah.
somewhere, and Swift is also has his bow. So they're like, there's that weird thing. It's like are they coming to have sex, or are they also there's like a under vibe of hostility towards each other as well. So like Rose was such a fascinating character. Like she even in that small few pages that she had, she was so well written that you could you could get a solid sense of who she was. And then of course like she kind of disappears from the pages, but because again the plot moves on, the gang has moved on, so it makes sense.
I was like, okay.
Like, please don't go there, because like that I don't have many. As long as I'm forewarned is forearmed, that kind of thing. As long as for the majority of things, if I know things are coming, I can kind of be okay with it. And I'm like, right, okay, like
have a line and this crossing it.
Yeah, like in the Poppy War, there's a scene in the Poppy War that everyone hates, and it can be quite harrowing. So like I know that's coming. That's fine. I can pre-arm myself. But when it comes to incest, that's just a line that I can't read about that. That's why I didn't watch Game of Thrones after the first couple episodes. I just can't. It so when it was like, I was like, please, everything else is so good. Do not ruin it. I'm so glad he didn't. Because I was like, please, because it would make me DNF a book if incest became a thing.
I mean, it did make me sit there wherever I was reading it and just go, how were you guys brought up? Like, seriously?
In a brothel?
Well, yeah, I get that. And I understand, like, obviously, if Swift was raised in the brothel, then a lot of the things that, teenage boys experience, he probably would have experienced that a lot younger, really, because he's surrounded by it, and his sister went into it. But at the same time, it's just kind of like...
Just horrifying, right? Mentally horrifying, even for you to think about it. They're not real, but you still think about it and you're like, oh no.
The thing is, you say it's not real, but it probably it was somewhere.
And
that's I think the thing that sticks with me about these books, because they are so lifelike, is that if you really want to think about it, despite the magic bit, if you took that bit out, the rest of it could actually happen. Like
Wild West frontier town, right?
Jezeb's whole backstory of being trained to be a sword blade master, even, and everything she goes through, and then I really liked the line that stuck in her head about whores sleep their way out of fights, but blade masters fight their way out. And a lot of the time she was like, oh well, I'm just gonna sleep my way out, at least I know I'll get out. And she sat there going, this makes me a coward, this makes me not a blade master. And I'm like, really, it's actually quite a smart way to do it. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but in the situations that she is actually put in this book, and that she's been put in the past that we kind of hear about, it does make sense.
But it makes you appreciate her even more, because it's kind of like she knows she can't say that she enjoys the sleeping with the people to get out of a situation, but she knows that is her only option sometimes to make sure she gets out of a situation alive. And the fact that it becomes a thing that her in her brain, she's like, fight or fuck. Like, she actually weighs up the options. Like, in this situation, I need to do this, and in this situation, it's best to do this. And it's like, for me, I have so much more respect for her as a person, that she, even though she knows that she's like, either one is not a great thing to have to do, but she's like, I'm doing it so I can survive. I'm doing it to get to the next part of my life, to make sure that I can get through it. I'm just like, absolute badass. Absolute
Yeah.
badass.
And she also you also get like her backstory of what happened to her, like why Constance, like Deadeye as she's known, is behind
Yeah.
her wanting to kill her, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so much trauma for our viewers and listeners. Like Jesset, am I allowed to give trigger warnings? Is that okay? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
so she goes through trigger warning for people who wanting to read this book. There's a lot of sexual trauma she goes through because she has been betrayed because she was part of a company, all female company. They were like mercenaries. They're really good at their job, but her own leader, whom she considered as like a sister, betrays her, and then she is kind of like there's this group of nobles called the Blooded, and one of them basically chains her and like destroys her morale as well as her mental condition.
That was
Like
difficult to listen to.
it's
Yeah.
really hard, right? But
Yeah.
what I admired in that about that, for Jezet's role is that she didn't allow it to break her. Like yes, she has been traumatized enough that she has this flight or fight response, but of course it's more of the flight than the fight part, and there's that fear in her because of that what happened to her. But she's still, if you look at her, like until that part is revealed, you don't get a sense of like she's that traumatized. She is still a strong person without constantly talking about that. How strong am I? Like we the readers, like
that's what I'm about.
Showing rather than telling. Rob is able to show that to us that she is a strong person, even though if she doesn't believe it. And then we kind of give it the backstory of like, this is what has happened to her, and you're like, oh my god, this is horrible. But that's why Jesset, again, similar to yours, in the end, she was my favorite character because I wanted to see more and more of her and how she went about her way.
Yeah, it's like you were saying, she doesn't. You know that she's strong because he shows it in the variety of ways that she interacts with people. But I've read books before where we have a badass female character where they have to continuously say, "I'm a badass. I'm strong."
Yeah.
Like I mean, I do love the Throne of Glass series, but they do it a lot with Selena in that. They say like, "I'm a badass. I'm the best assassin. I'm the best." And then it's like, yeah, she's a blade master. She's a sword master, but. And she's amazing at what she does, but she doesn't have to walk around saying like I'm the best. And you know what I mean, like she just is. And then by the way,
even Blackthorn is scared of her. Like in that one line, when they her and Tanquil are meeting with the Blackthorn gang, and Blackthorn is like, "Hold on, guys, I know what she can do with a sword. There might be 6 of us, but I know what she can do with sword. Let's just hold on.
Let's just not go there because
I like it. It's like a very subtle hint of like what happens in the end. Like when she goes full Blade Master. You get a sense that you get these small hints like her sword skills are more than what she lets on to believe.
Yeah, 100%.
I agree. I really liked that scene as well where we're learning about Jesset's past in that sense when she's fighting Constance. It's obviously towards the end of the book. And obviously she's saying all this to Constance because Constance doesn't know, and she's like, "No, you're lying. And there's a point where Jesset just goes, don't believe me. That's cool. Like, I know what is right. I know what has happened to me, and I know why it's happened to me. Go and ask. Go and do this, because you will get the same answer. And I also think that that's pretty good and a pretty good sense of character as well, because it just kind of proves like she goes, well, I don't need you and your validation. I know what's happened to me, and I know why it's happened to me. Just because you don't believe me doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah.
And I really like that as well. Obviously,
and the fact that she tried, even though this woman was trying to murder her, like she literally once said that she's zero. She's just like tunnel vision. She's like a dog with a bone. She's like, I just want you dead. I want you dead because you killed my sister. Because that's all she could think about.
Yeah.
And you could tell that she's sort of like. I was sort of in my head. I'm like, please just take a step back and listen to what she's saying because it makes sense. Like you're just very much like nothing. It's kind of like. She just doesn't want to believe that their sister would do that. And it's like those people are like, oh my son would never do that, or my son would never do that because that's not the person they are. So you really didn't know who this person was, and she didn't want to admit to herself that she didn't know who her sister was. That she's just capable of doing something like that. So she just had the blinkers on, and it was kind of like, I don't care, and I've wanted you dead for this long. I don't care what you say. You're gonna die. Like I want you dead. So, and I was just kind of like, please, just like. Listen to sense, like what you say makes sense.
You know what was funny about that scene as well? While Constance and Jesset are fighting, the women in the scene are fighting, and the men are just standing prim and proper. Like Hankwell and the Blooded Lord are just very calmly sitting, in that long room and just not chatting, but verbally jousting, whereas the females are like really jousting. I found that to be very funny because usually it's almost the opposite in all the films
Yeah.
that we have read. So I was like, Rob, that was like a very cool thing that you did.
Yeah, I did like that.
It's like the whole book. It's really well done, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, there are a lot of trigger warnings for this book.
Yeah.
Just in general. So if anyone hasn't read this and they're watching the spoiler chat, one, why? But two, check the spoilers before you go into this book. I mean, if you're happy to read grimdark, then maybe go into it not knowing, but do whatever at your own discretion.
But I would say as well, though, like, even within the subgenre of grimdark fantasy, there's like levels, isn't there? Like I mentioned, Joe Abercrombie for me was not grimdark. There was one character that went there, but it was just kind of like, people died and shit. But this was just, the whole thing was dark. Like there wasn't, like, although they had banter with each other, it was still laced with sort of like dark humor.
Yeah.
There wasn't like a really light-hearted like comedy character.
Yeah.
They had a bit of fun and banter, but it's still all laced with this overall like shroud of darkness, and like you know that what they're having to do and what it's not, there's not going to be I don't think there's going to be a happy ending to this one, to be fair, but like you know that she's going to go down. But it was just, I just love that about it. But I definitely needed to read a light-hearted contemporary after reading that. Just a bit of romance.
It can be pretty dark, can't it, really?
Hello.
Oh,
hello. You're not late, it's fine. What else have we got? Scenes at the Pink Petal, or whatever the place was called, was in fact where I put a bookmark to reference in case it came up. Of course it came up, but because it made me uncomfy, and I have to mention that because I like to mention when I made me uncomfortable. I don't know if I've read much grimdark. Ed McDonald's Ravenmark trilogy springs to mind. I haven't read that yet.
I have. It's dark, but it's more like the horror kind. Like there's like the physical body horror in it. Not like it's. I mean, yes, it is dark, but it's not like this. I don't know how to describe it. It has more to do with like the world is horrible because of their there's something wrong with the magic which has created this, and there's these creatures. Whereas in this world, it's not the magic; it's just the people are that. So,
which I think is what for me makes it darker, anyways, because it's like real life.
It's humans, It's like, and it really does show that, like, you can like someone who is inherently flawed. Like, you don't have to be. You can write a really good, engaging plot with great characters, and you can draw people into like your characters. And not every fantasy has to have that golden boy hero or golden girl hero, like boy. You know what I mean? You can have a fantasy where, like, literally nobody is, you can't say that anybody is good. In fact, they're all pretty horrible people, but you love them anyway. And
it's harder, right? It's harder to write about a pretty horrible characters, but yet make it so, I mean, exciting for us to read, so as to speak.
Yeah, I agree.
100%.
It's hard to do. Highly surprised that Jesuit was always thinking about dropping trousers as an option. I mean, if you look at her background, I kind of get it. I could be honest.
Yeah, 100%.
Hi, Cassidy.
Hello.
I'm going to rewatch once I've read. Yeah, come back and watch because we're full of spoilers. Overall thoughts. What are they? It's a very vague question, but I like vague open questions, if I've got to be honest.
I like the darkness, but I also like what he did with certain tropes, of the fantasy story. Like, for example, most fantasy stories, whenever there's like a chosen one who's introduced, the story kind of focuses on him or her, for the matter.
Yeah.
In this book, though, Rob does this really crazy thing where we are introduced to this god emperor, who's supposedly the reincarnation of of Volmar, which is the spirit which is helping all the arbiters. And then he gets, not sidelined, but basically he's just there for a small bit to help not help, but basically push Thankful onto his quest, and then he goes away. Yeah. I was like stymied when I first started that. I'm like, wait a second, there's a god emperor, he's a god, and you're not even focusing on him. There's nothing told about him. Like he and then even like when with Thankful, when you first meet him, he has this, I don't want to call her protege, but like the small girl who gets sent with him And
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I was waiting till the end, like she has to come back. That's why she's introduced. That small girl Freya, she's going to help Thankful in some way, or at least Thankful want to check back. And again,
Yeah.
no mention of her. Like I don't want to say if what happens in the next few books, because again, you both haven't read it, but I found this he purposefully twisted these tropes, of doing
Yeah.
something which we kind of as fantasy readers like, oh, I know where this is going, and you're like, oh no, this is not.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah. No, I agree, and especially with that little girl. I think what I liked about the use of that plot point was literally just the introducing of this is what arbiters are like.
Mhm.
I myself am an arbiter because obviously it's in Thankwall's point of view, but don't say thank you to the guy who recommended that you come on this path because it sucks and
Yes.
it's not a good one. And you're like, whoa, okay. Like usually something
Yeah.
like this, it's like, oh, God is holier than thou. I don't know if you've read the Justice of Kings. Obviously,
Yeah, I
when they become justices,
Mhm.
they're kind of everyone. Obviously, they're scared of them, but they are obviously revered everywhere, and everyone loves them.
Yes.
Whereas in this book,
Yeah.
even though they're still fighting evil, it's like, no, actually, you're shunned. We will serve you, but you can tell we're hostile about
Yeah.
you.
They burn people. They're like, nobody loves to be
Yeah.
murdered.
I think with the way that they've obviously it's kind of like a religion in it. It's kind of like so it's
Yeah.
the way that this is done in this one.
Mm.
It's approached it very differently. Although the way that they've done it, it's like you said, it's not these people that are following this path that
Yeah.
they've even shunned him. Like
Yeah.
so, even though and then when we're first introduced to him, I thought he was going to be like the main person because it was the
Mhm.
first because what he was doing, he was doing his job, but you could tell that he didn't really want to be doing these things to these people. Like he didn't agree with it. Like he stopped, or he tried to stop that guy doing something to that person that shouted at the beginning. What was that?
Prin, the arbiter Prin.
Oh, right.
Oh no,
Yeah,
the old man, yeah, who he
yeah,
pushed and
Yeah.
didn't burn him. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So
So,
I was like, oh right, okay. So he's a
Yeah.
good guy, but then obviously you see more about him, and I think that the fact that sort of he showed that, and then how honest he was with that girl, and he's like. I
mhm.
was a bit like you here. I was like, oh, well, maybe she's gonna come on the quest with him, and
Right?
she's gonna be like his little sidekick. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no, he's just dumped her at the
Yeah,
to just live with
literally.
them.
It's like pretty much sending her off to a monastery almost and being like, yeah,
Mhm.
good luck. If you make it, well done. If you don't, you don't. Like,
I know it's pretty savage, isn't it?
but I like that as well because I think that just kind of gave backstory without giving backstory because we haven't actually seen. Don't know what happens in the next ones, obviously, but we haven't actually seen a lot of Thankwall's past, and I'm not sure if we will.
Mhm.
Is that you nodding, saying yes, we will see Thankwall's past?
I'm not confirming or denying anything.
But I think because we
I don't
haven't
want to
seen,
spoil the books for you. That's why, because there's levels to it, because I have to remind myself what happens in book 2 and what happens in book 3, and because I have to limit
this is
my answer that way.
this is why I haven't started listening to book 2. I was like, I cannot start listening to
Yeah,
it
that's what I was like.
because I will muddle everything and I've got no idea what's happening. But me and Lisa are a little bit similar, I think, in that way. So
Yes, I would have ended up spoiling something and being like, "Oh, this happens," and you're like, "No, that's book 2. Backtrack, backtrack."
you don't really big red button, like, nope, nope.
It's like, just cross this out. But yeah, I think overall thoughts is that I actually do think that he's gonna be an author that I will buy more from just from that first book because I do enjoy
Yeah.
his writing style.
Mhm.
Um, for me, and I'm very much first off, I'm a character driven person. Plot,
Mhm.
we do need a plot to progress the story, but if I can't get behind the characters in some way, even like I said, they don't have to be inherently good. I could literally hate a character, but if they're done really well and I can get behind the reason why I hate them,
Yeah.
then I will read it. But the fact that he drew me in within the first chapter of each person, and I was
Yeah.
intrigued from the get go, and it's just the
Yeah.
way that he just, like you said, he shows you without, and he tells you without over
Yeah.
describing things, and just that kind of thing. I think that he's going to be someone that I'll end up with a full collection of Rob J. Hayes at this point.
I mean,
It'll
we've
be
already
like,
got the Kickstarters.
yeah, oh my god, yeah, we've got the Kickstarters of his new series. Well, the trilogy of trilogies, haven't we?
Yeah, the God Eater ones.
The God Eater, yeah.
Oh, those I have some juicy spoilers for you folks about those as well. We'll talk after this about that because I don't want to spoil this about that as well.
But yeah, I think I do. The only downside is that these are only available in paperback because I like to get my faves in hardback, but that's just a me thing. But
Yeah.
Lisa, you might have a pleasant surprise ahead. If you love hardbacks, you might have a pleasant surprise ahead this year.
Oh, I hope it's
Wow.
another Kickstarter.
Wow.
Rob, if you're watching, I hope it's another Kickstarter. We'll have all of my money.
Do the hardbacks and the Heresy Within.
But it's the same with the Along the Razor's Edge series. You can buy them in hardback.
Yeah.
Those are
off
gorgeous.
Amazon.
Yes. Those are so
And
gorgeous.
they are very pretty.
They are.
I have been begging him about making hardbacks of these, or at least omnibus editions, because there's 6 books in this series, so to speak. There's the first trilogy with this one and a couple of other books. Then there's a duology, and then there's like a standalone. So I was kind of I've been bugging him like, hey, why don't you combine them and come up with like hardcover omnibus?
Michael R. Miller, where he's put 3 books in one, and you just get a big weapon delivered to your door.
Yeah, I've seen your edition of that. That's a little bit terrifying.
You can't lift that with one hand. I'm telling you, I've tried. And I'm like,
that's why the Zach Argyle trilogy put the Threadlight omnibus.
Oh, that's such a gorgeous one. That is so gorgeous.
But I didn't buy it, not because it wasn't gorgeous, because it is gorgeous. But I was like, theoretically, I've got signed hardback editions, and I can read them again because I can physically hold them.
I bought it because I only got like paperback signs from Zach Argyle, so I was like, I don't have a hardback edition. I can spend money on this.
But that was the thing, because I bought the hardbacks that you can probably just about see them here. Because I just about bought. I recently bought them when he announced, and I was like,
I got them from the Broken Binding when they did the sale on the trilogy for like £70 for all 3, and I'm like, I can't turn that down because
that's what I did for mine.
Yeah, I will. The thing about indie published books is that if I know that I'm going to like them, then I know that they are more expensive than traditionally published books, but they are worth it to me.
Yeah,
like if it's a brand new author to me that I don't know if I'm going to like, I think I kind of knew that I would like Rob J. Hayes just because I do. When it comes to fantasy, I do have similar taste to people. Obviously, you've read Rob J. Hayes before, Chelsea, and Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy, Rob J. Hayes, and from what I've seen of his people who like him, I have similar taste to a lot in the fantasy. So I was like, I'm going to like him.
Yeah.
So he's going to be. I'm sorry, he needs to like slow down with his writing because I need to catch up because he's been publishing for like 10 years, and I've literally just found him, and I'm like, oh my god, all my money's gonna go.
Lisa, you have the advantage. You have so many finished series as well. You have the finished trilogy, you have the finished duology. Like you kind of have like 6 First Earth books. Then you have 5 Eska books. You have 3 Mortal Techniques books. I think. There's also like a short story collection of his with the First Earth as well. So you just have like so much fun stuff.
Everything is completed.
Yeah, I like that. I like that this series is completed. I'm glad it was our first choice for 2024 because it's a really good place to start. And I will say that as much as I loved Eska and Along the Razor's Edge, I was a little bit apprehensive about coming into this because I just loved that book so much. I was like, I don't know if I don't want this author to be a one-hit author for me. I don't want to just enjoy one thing from them and then never like anything else or not like as much. So it's really nice to actually be like, I actually like.
Wait till you have you both read the Mortal Techniques? Or
no, I've not read anything else by Rob.
Read this and Along the Razor's Edge. That's it.
Oh, so well then there's that series as well, which is really fascinating. And wait until you reach or you get your hands on God Eater or Herald, the first epic fantasy from him. Like it is
them coming
mind-blowingly good, like so mind-blowingly good. Like again, horrible characters and not want to follow them. I mean, not all of them. Some of them are heroic, some of them are like There's a wolf princess in his newest book, like in that, which I can tell you, if you liked Henry or Jezet, you are going to love Perel in the God Eater books, or at least you are going to be fascinated by her. Very fascinated. It's like she's this badass warrior hunting angels with a big giant wolf.
Love this.
Right, I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold on it, 100%. But
that's the other thing as well, because me and Lisa have kickstarted the God Eater books. That was my other worry, because I was like, if in theory I like 2 for 2, then in theory I'm going to be cool with everything else probably. Like there'll probably be something that I don't necessarily gel with 100%. This is one of the first books that spring to mind in a long time for me where I actually like every point of view.
Yeah.
Which doesn't often happen. I think Zach Argyle's book, I liked every point of view. For his books, I found some of them not tedious, but like a little bit more slow going. But I still enjoyed them. But so what? Like, as much as like multiple POV is my chosen way to experience a book, because I like the overarching plot of everyone.
Yeah.
It's very hard to like everyone. But
Yeah.
in this, I liked every point of view. Obviously, to begin with, with Jezet, I was a bit like, not sure if she's going to be like my kind of girl. But turns out she is. Like, she's pretty cool. But the fact that we were actually able to, I was actually able to like every character. I was like, wow, this is nice new green ground.
And I think I said to you before we came live, I can't believe that this was his debut.
No.
Oh yeah.
Just like because another thing for you that I was reading about with you is that sometimes, for instance, with authors where I've read current books and I've gone back, like with Schwab, I read a current book, went back to read a debut, and I'm like, my God, you can tell this was a debut, and like they hadn't come into their writing yet, and you could tell that. And a lot of and it's not bad, but a lot of the time with a debut book, you could tell that they don't really know themselves as authors yet. Like they might. And you can see them, like what was Called from the North, great book, give it 4 stars. But at the beginning, you could kind of tell that he didn't know his writing style yet, and then near the end of the book, you can see his journey. Whereas this, like, no, this is his first book. Like, he knew exactly what he wanted from the story, exactly what he wanted from his characters, and. Right, I don't know whether he like pre-plans all his books or whether he's the kind of person who just writes stuff down and goes back. But you can tell that like there's conviction behind like this is why I've chosen this for these characters. This like nothing is done just for the sake of it being done. Like everything, there's a purpose for everything. There was no lulls in the book. There was no parts of the book where I'm like, oh my God, like the pacing is really weird here. Like there was nothing like that. And as a debut author, you'd expect something to be like, maybe he hasn't got his pacing right or something like that. I'm like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
It's absolute madness.
Thing is, like, amazing. I don't know how long it took Rob to write this book.
Like 3 years. 3 years or so.
God.
Yeah, because he mentioned that in my interview. Sorry, I'll go.
No, it's fine. Carry on.
No, I think he mentioned 3 years in one of the interviews that I'd done with him. That's why I think it's 3 years.
Okay.
Or so.
Oh my God.
Okay. So for me, if obviously I'm not a writer, one day maybe, but it would take me a long time to get there. God, no, I don't think I could write a book like this, gotta be honest. But if you dedicated 3 years of your life to writing a book like this, and especially if Rob is anything like me, I would spend as much of my time writing that book and making sure it was perfect, like good to go, which is probably would also be my downfall, but we digress. Like it would, and that's kind of how I imagine he is. And even just getting the little emails that we get for the God Eater Kickstarter, and he's going, oh well, I'm just tweaking this and tweaking that, and this is all done, and working on this. You can tell that he doesn't really, he's not the sort of person, doesn't seem to be the sort of person, I don't know him, I'd love to know you, Rob, but I don't, who just kind of sits, bangs out a book and goes, yeah, good enough, off it goes. Like, you can tell that there's a lot of care and thought and processes that go into it, regardless of what his actual process is, but he's got his own way of doing it, and he does it very well, obviously.
Yeah, Yeah, 100%. You can tell that they takes pride in what he does. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And what always sort of like I'm in awe of with independent authors is that a lot of the time, especially in the earlier books, have not been able to afford an editor or a proofreader.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times with those kind of authors, they'll have done it all themselves, or the majority of it themselves. So it's a lot of the time it's alongside a full-time job. So not only have they I think that's why I do love indie fantasy so much, as a concept. It's just because I don't know that people feel more real behind. I know that all authors are real people, but do you know what I mean? It's like these people have like, and they have to do all their own marketing stuff. Like, you've got to be a full-on like author and business person and like accountant to just do it all by yourself. And the fact that like this one person just created this and out of their brain and did it, it's just absolute madness.
It's bonkers.
Yeah, and the fact that you can write so bloody much as well.
Indie fantasy authors like do it all, like you said, Lisa. They do it all themselves. They have to write the book, they have to edit it or hire an editor. They have to probably go hire a cover artist. They have to go get a person to maybe or do their own things. They're gonna do all the not proofreading, but designing and everything. Like I think Sean T. King was the one who did the design. Yep, Sean T. King who did the design for this one, and I think he's the one who's been doing all of Rob's books since then. But yeah, I mean, many authors do it themselves, and it is hard. Like hats off to indie authors. Like I couldn't do it. I can't write a book either. But like I love reading, but I can't write. But like to do just not to write, but to even and then to put it out. Like I think that's the hardest step, right? You take something so personal and put it out and hope that people don't hate it. Because no knock against you, Chelsea. I'm not saying you, but there are certain readers on Goodreads who just trash books just for the sake of it.
I don't just trash books.
Yeah, you don't trash books. Like you review them with these are the highlights, these are not the highlights, something like that.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about people who just trash books. Be like, they'll give 1 star for like there was a crease when the book arrived. 1 star.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But it's swore in the book. Let's give it 2 stars.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That is.
I agree.
I don't have that strength in me to ever do that. Like, not that I can write, I can't write, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think I have the strength in me to be like, write something and then put it out there and be like, it's out. Now people can judge me. So
Yeah.
You could tell that he's one of those writers that you think, well, clearly he was born to do this. Like, like it's just, and I'm so excited to continue with it. Not only continue with the series, but just to see what's more for me. So if you're giving this, and we have similar thoughts on it, and you're giving this like a 4-star, Chels, like, and you gave Along the Razor's Edge 5. I know Cassidy from Cubs of Cassidy, she loved Along the Razor's Edge. She was going to actually recommend that just before you did. So then when I messaged her saying, can you recommend me 2 fantasy books? Oh, this is what I've already been recommended. She's like, I was going to recommend Along the Razor's Edge.
Yeah. Like,
so many people love it. And I'm just like, now that I've started, I want to read in like release order, but I don't know that's more recent stuff. And I'm just like, want to rush through everything now just to sort of get to the months.
But obviously there's more books after this, isn't there? So we're reading the first 3 books, which is the first trilogy. And then it carries on, doesn't it? Is that
there's a duology, the Best Laid Plans, the pirate duology. So it's like Pirates of the Caribbean meets Joe Abercrombie. That's how Rob describes it. And it's actually the one which won the SPFPO. So the first book of the duology, Where Loyalties Lie, won the SPFPO in 2017. And I've really helped Rob. And then with that duology, it ends. But then there's like a solo book, which is City of Kings, which it's hard. It is a standalone. Let me just be clear. It is a standalone. You can read it as a standalone, but it happens simultaneously alongside the pirate duology. Not that there is much interaction with it. And it's also actually a proper sequel to the second book of this trilogy for reasons which I can't tell because there'll be spoilers, so I'm not going to tell them. But when we have this chat in a couple of months, I'll be able to say more, and you'll understand why I didn't say it right now.
I think you will be the best person to answer this. Should I keep reading after I finish this first trilogy?
So if it's Tufty asking, should I keep reading the first Earth books?
So I think the question is, after they finish reading this trilogy that we're reading for this, then should they keep reading the duology next? And then
yes. Yeah. So yeah, go into after finishing these 3 books. After the third book, Price of Faith, go into Where Loyalties Lie, which is the first book of the Pirate Duology, and then you can read The First Empire of Man, and then you can read City of Kings, which is a standalone. It'll make more sense that way. They can, of course, read, if they wanted to, City of Kings. They're chronologically wise in the world. I think it makes more sense for them to read Where Loyalties Lie, because that is actually happening chronologically earlier.
Okay.
There we go.
You heard it here.
I think I need to write down a Rob J. Hayes reading list, and then just he's got how many books?
Like a little diagram. that would be helpful. But other? Oh, sorry, Lisa.
Somebody's just said he's got all of them lined up in that stated order, so he's good to go.
Yeah. There you go. Sorted. Do we have any final thoughts for this book? Yes.
Yes, if you don't mind, Chelsea, there was like the comment from Tufty a while ago, like, asking if this was his debut book. I just want to show off the cover, actual debut cover.
Oh my god, yeah.
This is not a knock on Rob. This is the cover of the first book when I actually found it on Amazon, and I just want to show it because it is hilarious, if that's the right word.
Yes.
Sorry, Rob. I know I love your books, but I just have to share this.
We love you really, so we're doing this as character building.
We're just really glad that Mr. Sean T. King was here for this situation.
This is the original cover of the book that was first published in 2013. I don't think there are any paperback editions of this, thankfully. But yeah, this was the book that drew me in. And to be fair, to Rob's credit, I saw this book, I read like a small excerpt, loved it, and I jumped in the book. I finished it within a weekend, and this was really helpful because during that time my father was like having cancer problems, so I wasn't reading. Like for 6 months I was just like, nothing is helping, and because I was helping him staying at nights in the hospital. So over the weekend when I found this book, I read it and I was like, this is something amazing. And then I found out that there's other 2 books are also available, so I was like, I'm back. And so but this was the cover. I just want to show that.
The thing is, the artwork is good. It just, if I'd have seen that book and then read it, it just doesn't fit the vibe of this pulled me in as well. Like
this was also
the vibe.
Yeah, this was also in 2013 when there was I don't think there were any cover artists back then.
Yeah,
he was just like, I think even he didn't know anybody. But yeah, this one, oh god, this is so beautiful.
I can't get over this. Like I've got the book 2 ready and waiting for me to read. Where is it? It's here. Oh,
nice.
I'm flying. Color of Vengeance. I'm so excited, but I'm also scared as to why they are attached to poles. I am afeared.
A scene from the book. That's all I'll say.
Okay, very terrifying.
Oh, there's wolves in the background. There's wolves. Look, there's eyeballs. There's eyeballs. Are there wolves? Or there might be shadow demons. Wolves, shadow demons.
We'll have to read the book to find out. Well, we can now because we've now spoken about the first one.
Just appreciate the flop. Like, who doesn't love a floppy paperback?
I will say that this is the only corner of the internet where you can say, "Can we appreciate the flop?"
Yeah, this is true. And like, they just look so pretty together. Like, oh my god!
I need to know what this announcement is now, so I know whether I'm going to be buying paperbacks or not.
I would still buy. I think even if I do end up
limited book space, if
I do end up getting other versions of this, it just means I can just annotate and tab the shit out of these.
See, I don't enjoy that. So.
Oh, I do. Getting a few tabbages in there.
Tabbages.
I'm with Lisa on that. If it's a paperback, you can do that as much to your heart's content. Hardback, not so much, but paperback,
not on the hardbacks, no. But if you like, I feel like I will reread this series, and there'll be things that I'm just like, oh my god, and then all the foreshadowing and stuff that you see, just like, right, okay, you could just write in it and tab it and get some.
No, this is why I rely on my terrible memory, and it is terrible. But tabbing books just.
It's easier to keep
books. That's fine. My problem, although it does make me a little bit sad writing in books, is purely the fact that I feel like if I had to tab, I would not enjoy the book at all because it would feel like school and I would be paying too much attention to, is this important? Is this not important for me to actually take anything in? So
that is fair.
We all have our strengths and weaknesses, and my brain is not wired for that.
Quirks.
Quirks is right.
I do a lot of tapping in the ebooks though. That's really easy because you can just.
Oh, I started doing that. Yeah, I started doing that. I didn't realize it was a thing. I'm like, oh my god, you can highlight.
I can do that, and I have done that in the past, mainly for books like that we read for Spiffbo, just to remember things, which I think I do.
I do love the fact though that sometimes on them you can see how many other people have highlighted the same things as you.
Yeah,
and I'm like, 59 people have highlighted this funny quote, and I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny. There are plenty of space on top of my bookshelves, but I just got boxes on at the minute. Maybe we'll get there at some point. The tabs leave sticky residue, so I'm not doing that.
Fair point at all.
I think that only matters if you're going to take them out, really.
Yeah.
This is true. I shall commence book 2 at the end of the month. I think I will too. Obviously, the next live show for the Colour Vengeance will be on the lovely Lisa's channel. So we will announce a date, and it'll be at 7 p.m. probably, regardless. But we'll announce a date when we have one, and then we'll announce it, and we'll go from there. Because that's what we'll do. But it will be in March at some point.
At some point in March, yeah, when everyone's available.
Yes, that would be lovely. But otherwise, happy 2024. This was our first live stream of the year.
So excited.
Lisa, thank you so much for having me and making allowing me to come and blab about these books.
You're welcome. Welcome back. Come back to book 2 and 3.
Yeah, just come back. That's fine.
Yeah, just keep them back.
I would love to. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you would open invitation.
You'll see me here for the next 2 months.
Yep. This is passive aggressive. Well done on getting the book done in time.
I mean,
it's
to be
not
fair,
me.
I did it once. You've done it more than once.
Yeah, I know, but
it's like
in Chelsea's defense, she's on top of things in SPFBO. Like she has been amazing. Because believe me, I'm not the one setting the schedule. We have Lucas who sets the schedule, and Chelsea and I both know we do not mess with the schedule. So Chelsea is amazing with getting the books read, giving the reviews, giving the scores. So in Chelsea's defense, she's been amazing. SPFBO is
scores I've done on time. I've done one review 2 days late, and I was sick. That's why.
Which is fair. Which is absolutely fair, because the aim is we just need a score. We need a score. We don't need always need a review. We need a score, and she has been reading and giving us scores on time.
Hey guys,
I would love to be involved in 5 or 10. I'll message Matt Lawrence like, please accept me as a judge. Yeah, it's been fun. I'm excited for book 2. Let's go.
So yeah, thank you everyone for watching, whether you're watching this live or watching it back. Thank you. You're on my channel, so you can check me out everywhere pretty much. Me just hitting my microphone. Lisa's channel, do you want to plug?
Lisa does live. I barely do live. I do a little bit. Oh, bless you.
Thanks. I just caught that. And Mia, do you want to tag?
Sure, yeah.
Plug?
I will hopefully be back on these lovely ladies' channels in the future for the remaining 2 books. But you can find Fantasy Book Critic at our blog on the fantasybookcritic.blogspot. You can find me on Twitter at Fantasy Book Critic. You can also find us on Instagram at Fantasy Book Crit. Drop in a line, say hello. We are always happy to chat about any books, about any authors, if you wish. And always more Rob J. Hayes. So yay.
Yay. More Rob.
Woohoo. And we'll be back on Lisa's channel in March.
Yeah.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Waving.